right, sweet. All right, got my two audience members. Justin's asleep. Is he still knocked?
Yeah.
Yikes. All right, I think. Can you lean over? Am I in this camera?
Not quite. Right there.
And it's still got the screen?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna back it up just a little bit. There you go. That's better.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So, I know you guys, my roommates, we all enjoy all sorts of forms of entertainment. And there's like movies, magazines, comics, TV shows, TikTok, video games, yeah, all sorts of stuff. So I want to pitch comics as the best entertainment that you guys aren't partaking in, and I'm going to convince you guys why you should read them, or at least give them a chance. So I thought of a couple of negatives that we don't really think about related to other forms of entertainment, and I did some research, and I found out that anything over 2 hours is too much screen time, which I'm way over. Yeah, we're all way over. And too much screen time causes eye problems, sleep deprivation, loss of social skills, and increased procrastination, which I think we've all felt. So I finally figured out what it is. And then also, just to pick apart common forms of entertainment that we enjoy, digital entertainment, one of the main things I hate is how filled with ads it is. And a lot of the ads are unskippable, or like I'll see the same ad like 40 times in a week just from going through stuff. And they pop up on Snapchat, like you can't skip them, you gotta watch them through. On YouTube, sometimes you can't skip them. And also, a lot of shows, movies, and streams are very profit focused nowadays. So, like, not only are they trying to sell you something, or someone is having the movie try to sell you something through product placement, they also the story's affected because the company just puts out money and says, make us a movie, and it kind of comes out to try to make that money back to the company. And an algorithm largely decides for you. And I was thinking about this with with books, comic books especially, you don't have that algorithm base. But no matter, even if we think we discover something new, it's based off the things we already like. And that's what the algorithm does. It just feeds us more of the same. So we can't really discover anything new unless we take a chance off the algorithm. And I did some pop-up ads. And so the immediate benefits from reading comics kind of related to those downsides. They can improve your vocabulary. That's how I actually learned to read, and learned to read at the right level in elementary school was through comics. And it's not a screen, so it doesn't bother your eyes as much when you read them. And it uses your imagination differently. And it also gives you an improved appreciation for a modern and unique art form. So would you rather stare at this for 10 minutes or stare at this awesome painting of superheroes for 10 minutes? Way more detail over here, a lot more to take up your mind for 10 minutes. And there are all other benefits as well. Like I said with the algorithm, you can discover something new by walking in, picking up something that looks like something you'd be interested in, and that's not algorithm based, that's all you choosing that. They don't force you to watch ads. I know in the little comic magazines that I used to read, there's always like a Twinkie ad or like a ad for a new video game. Like that was pretty common, but I could just turn the page and be done with it. I don't need to stay on it for a specific amount of time. They're socially relevant. So this one's about one of the guys who did the March on Washington with Martin Luther King. He wrote his memoirs and it was turned into a comic book. It was pretty good. And they tackle a lot of social issues from all sides. They mix sides. It's a very vibrant medium. And you'll enjoy the new comic book movies more when you know the backstories to what happened. And they're going to come out, and they're not stopping coming out. So if you were interested in enjoying them a little bit more, there's books out there that can teach you the background. And it's escapism in its best form. So we all need some time away from reality because reality sucks a lot of the time. And one thing I love about comics is we can believe in our heroes and hate the villains. In real life, it's really hard to figure out who the heroes and villains are because everybody's got their own things going on. But in a lot of comic books, it's very clear right and wrong, good and bad. But if you do want to, in your escapism, read something with more gray lines, there's comics for that too. There's a comic for everyone. And it's a really unintimidating, safe place to open a comic book and learn about different themes or different things that we're maybe not educated on. In like a non-intimidating place, if you don't like it or feel uncomfortable, you can close it, put it away. You're done. It won't keep popping up for you. And comics can bring you hope and joy with a lot of the stories. So here's some famous comic book fans to show you guys that I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one. Eminem is a big comic book fan. He did a couple songs for not a fan.
No, I said no.
He did a couple of songs for the Venom movies, and then also he dresses up as Robin in one of his famous music videos from the beginning of his career. Ryan Reynolds, obviously a superhero fan. He's been in a lot of movies. Olivia Munn, model turned actress turned entrepreneur, is weirdly a really, really big comic book fan. And former President Barack Obama actually has a pretty large Spider-Man collection. So those are some famous people. And then I also decided it would probably be a good idea to show the other side of someone who probably never read comics. Adolf Hitler. And I did some investigation on this a little bit, and while a lot of his library things were stolen out of it when they raided the library at the end of World War II, they didn't find any comics in what was left over. And I doubt, just because of how comics were at the time, I doubt people would have enjoyed them too much, because this was what was coming out. So that's Hitler getting punched in the face. And actually, during World War II, comics were a very important piece of propaganda for the U.S. against the Nazis. And comic book heroes like Captain America and some older ones that we don't really talk about too much anymore, just because they were from the 40s, 30s, and 40s. They did a lot to motivate people to donate like tins and all extra metal to be melted down into bullets and things for war, and to purchase war bonds, to do all sorts of stuff to help the community. So comics are really good, and bad people don't read them. So here's a couple of my recommendations. Bone, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this one. This one I read, yeah? Nice. This one I read through, read a little bit in elementary school and then read through fully in middle school. But it's about a group of these bones, these little white creatures, and they're kind of like cartoon characters, kind of like a like Mickey Mouse Club group of cartoon characters, but they get thrown into a kind of fantasy world where she's secretly a princess, and there are monsters trying to take over the fantasy world. And so they help out, but it's cool because it's kind of like Game of Thrones meets Looney Tunes in certain ways. And then this one, definitely more serious, is Mouse. And this is one of my favorites. It's by Art Spiegelman, and he wanted to tell the story of his father and their family's experiences being Jews in World War II, but his father couldn't bring himself to talk about it. So instead, he suggested to his father that they talk about it in the third person as cats being the Nazis and mice being the Jews. So by separating himself from that story a little bit, he was able to tell the full family story to his son, and his son illustrated it and published it as Mouse. And it's good. It's hard read, but it's good. And then this is another one of my favorites. It's Y the Last Man. It's what the world would be like if all the men died off to a mysterious disease, except for a failed street magician and his pet monkey, being the only two males of any species alive on the earth.
Oh man.
And it's pretty fantastic. And then last, I had to throw in some superheroes. I tried not to, because, you know, some people get bored of superheroes. But Justice League International is one of my favorites. It still has Batman, but the rest of the Justice League is a whole new cast of characters. And it's about them trying to take over the Justice League after the Justice League breaks up. Like Superman and Wonder Woman, they go their separate ways. And a new crowd of younger heroes comes in, but they're super dysfunctional. And it's just hilarious that way. So, I want to invite you guys to read a comic today, ideally. But if not, just the next time you're in your local library, a bookstore, or comic book shop, just take a chance on a comic book. I'm sure you'll be able to find one you like. You could take my recommendations or ask someone else for a recommendation, like the comic book shop guy. And you don't need to pay money. You could go to the library to get them for free, which I recommend, because some comic books can get spendy. But yeah, I hope you guys can find an enjoyment in comics like I have. Thanks for listening to my speech. An idea.
Ooh.